Thank you, Tara. Woohoo! All right, this is a challenging job, being the chairperson of a meeting and knowing who to call on. Who do I call on? All right, I'm supposed to pass the baton, so to speak, to somebody in the audience where they make motions and that sort of thing. But how do I know which person to call on, especially if there's more than one person signing up? So to do that, we're going to have a member rise. The member rise and addresses the chair, Mr. Chair. And the chair then says, Mr. Loud, what would you like to say? And Mr. Loud says, blah, 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 blah. I move to. And this is how the motion starts. The motion starts with one individual making a main motion, and they phrase it as not I make a motion, it's I move to. And then whatever the action is that they would like the organization to go in. The chair restates the motion exactly as was stated by the member, or if needed, they might offer some additional tweaks to it to say, are you accepting that I modified it this way? And then once the chair restates the motion, another member seconds the motion. Woohoo! Yay, second. 3 members rise and address the chair. Uh-oh, now what do I do? As a chairperson, we have to pick one. How do we pick? That's what's called preference. A member who made the motion has the preference. So the chair will then call on Mr. Loud, Mr. Loud. And Mr. Loud then goes into why he thinks the assembly should accept this motion. And Mr. Loud must support his motion. He can't then say, no, I don't think I ought to be going. He has to support his motion. So then 3 members rise after Mr. Loud finishes and they address the chair. Uh-oh, now I have to select between them. So the question is, which one do I select? And they all look great, right? Except for Mr. Grumpy in the middle. But let's go ahead and say the member who has not spoken. So this is really random. So the chair in this case calls on Miss Happy. Miss Happy? And Miss Happy says, I am for the motion because. She has the ability to say, I am for the motion or I'm against the motion. And it's really important to actually start that way so we know how you stand. And everybody in the audience knows what direction you're headed. And then now you want to list the reasons why you're in support of the motion. And if you can, I suggest writing it down in advance so you know what your key points are going to be. If you need to, you can glance down and say, I have 3 key points on why I think we ought to be for this motion. So Ms. Happy finishes her debate, and now 3 members rise and address the chair. Uh-oh, all right. And now this way, the chair ideally will alternate between members who are in favor and members who are opposed. So in this case, the chair asks, are there any members opposed? It so happens that Mr. Dejected is opposed. And so the chair calls for Mr. Dejected to state his reasons. He says, I move to amend. And in this case, we're amending the main motion and he's choosing to make some modification to that motion. Okay, so Mr. Dejected makes that amendment and the chair restates the motion to amend exactly as it was stated. Ideally, they're going to phrase the entire main motion along with the amendment to that motion. And then another member seconds it. This person is really happy. All right, now who do I select? The maker of the motion does not have to speak. So if they are standing and would like to speak, you can call on them, the maker of the motion of the amendment. But if they don't stand and they don't want to speak, you don't have to call on them. So it so happens that we open it up for the debate and a member says, vote it down because I got a better motion. And so once that has come up and let's say the audience really didn't like the amendment, we decide, okay, let's go and see what this person has. So the chair calls the question, meaning that we now take a vote and the members vote it down. So the amendment is voted down. Now, 3 members rise and address the chair. Which one do I select? The chair will now select the member who has requested to vote down the previous motion for a better motion. So the chair calls on the member with the better motion. And this person says, I move to amend, and they have their main motion, what they're modifying of the main motion. Now there's 3 ways to amend. Okay, one is to insert a new word. So instead of painting the blue, you'd say sky blue, for example. You're inserting the word sky. Or you can strike it out. So you can strike out the word brick and put, well, strike out the word brick, for example. Or we can substitute. Substitute is usually used for an entire paragraph or something more than that. Otherwise, we're using insert and strike out for a couple of words. So the chair restates the motion to amend, and Ms. Happy seconds the motion. Now there's a debate, and then the chair calls the question to amend. And all those vote in support of the amendment. The amendment passes, and now we go back to the main motion. The main motion is further debated. If there's any further comments, then we can have it. But we're now to the amended main motion. The chair calls and asks if there's any further debate. There is none. So the chair calls the previous question, which is the amended main motion. And all those vote, and they tend to vote in favor in this case. So we end up having a deliberative assembly that it looks extremely happy. I mean, after all, look at Mr. Dejected. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to our Toastmaster.